Good afternoon. Welcome to the special call budget meeting for the Commission on Human Trafficking. I'm going to call the meeting to order on August 18th at a little after 1 p.m. I apologize for getting a late start. I'm going to ask the staff to call a roll call. Hopefully, in order for us to have a quorum, which we unfortunately do not have today, but I believe we can probably make a reasonable recommendations to the main board meeting that's later on. But we currently have the need for 11 members, of which we do not have today. So I'll ask the staff to do a roll call so that we can hear from those that are attending virtually.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Overman?
Here.
Beverly Mullen Nicky, and please apologize if I don't pronounce that name correctly. Mr. Klug? Captain Mills, Major Rule, Connie Rose, Courtney Derry, Deborah Laskowski, Iris Valdez, Corey Dunaway, Jennifer Glaser.
Here.
Karen, School Board Member Perez, Kathleen Kemke.
Here.
Sergeant Durkin, Deputy Chief Burkhaw,
Here.
Chief Judge Figueroa,
Here.
Santiago Carrata,
Present.
Corporal Tester. Madam Chair, you do not have a quorum.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, it's excellent because but we could still do some things today. And for the record, Ms. Connie Rose and Mr. Charles Klug both indicated they previously that they were unable to attend today's meeting. For the others, I'm not so sure. But thank you very much for those of you that were able to take the time to attend today. We have 15 minutes set aside for public comment. And typically, I don't know that we have anyone signed up for public comment today.
Madam Chair, we do not.
We don't. So I'm going to skip the chair's statement for now since we have no one to instruct on what that looks like. But typically, we do set aside 15 minutes for public comment. And seeing as that we have done today, I'll skip that for the next meeting in order to respect everyone else's time. The good news is the Board of County Commission has been working through the budgetary process for the fiscal year 2023. And as a member of the Board of County Commission, I had the privilege and the opportunity to focus on what was found to be additional dollars as a consequence of what we've seen in property values beyond the original estimates of the ad valorem that could potentially generate, and other revenues, generate revenues for budgetary expenses based on department requests. What that means is the Board of County Commission has an opportunity to set aside dollars that aren't part of the normal budget through what's called a flag list process. And with that, I had the opportunity to do a lot of things. So I was able to actually acquire some resources for things that weren't necessarily part of our regular agenda items for the Commission on Human Trafficking that were for special projects. And many of that which this board has already either heard about or been presented. We have continued the, as a recurring basis, the flag project, the flag project that we asked for the court to administer for us of the court liaison position that we requested on a recurring basis that's actually outside of the budget for Commission on Human Trafficking. And in addition to that, we were able to acquire and support the crisis center's need for nurses as part of the flag item, need for nurses for the domestic violence, human trafficking effort going on in the south part of the county. That's a new project in order to create access to those in that area that have extreme difficulty to travel around the county. Many of them don't have vehicles or have not access to transportation. So being able to provide nurse support for that particular area was critically important. The handout that you have on the worksheet indicates that we funded a nurse ambassador. But in addition to that, we funded, it's my understanding, 3 nurse positions, healthcare positions for the crisis center in order to support the ongoing needs of that particular project. And then we did receive a request, the Commissioner's Office did receive a request regarding the TIP Lab. You know, we've all heard the presentation from the team at USF TIP Lab as it pertains to the Bright Scope project, and where we're able to develop a dashboard for referrals and capacity, as well as for data analysis to determine what we're experiencing in the way of human trafficking in the region, and specifically in Hillsborough County, and working with law enforcement as well as the court system, as well as our providers, in order to really discern how we are meeting the need of tackling the crime of human trafficking and the trauma associated with those that have experienced it, whether it be labor traffic or sex traffic, whether it be adults or whether it be children. So the Bright Scope project is one way to get that thing up and running, and they were a little bit shy of some funding, and we wanted to be able to help them. So in the flag process, I selected many of those projects that could in fact assist in the overall services associated with Commission of Human Trafficking's mission. There were a lot of other flag list items that were surrounding primarily those partners that we have in the industry that are addressing homelessness and or home security or evictions. And as we do know, that crisis that occurs if someone is facing eviction and couch surfing and ultimately lose their children as a consequence of not being able to provide a safe environment, and then those children become at risk of possible human trafficking, it all is connected. So while it isn't directly associated with Commission on Human Trafficking, it is a safety net resource that partners that we work with. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And then I'd also like to ask, the next item is the subcommittee recaps and assignments. Given 2 of our chairs are out, unable to attend today, I was curious if we have anyone from those 2 committees that has either elected or if staff is going to provide us with that report. First item on the agenda is the education outreach budget concerns.
Mr. Carrata, you were on that subcommittee meeting. I hate to put you on the spot, but would you like to say a few words about what happened in that meeting?
Sure. We had a meeting not too long ago. I don't remember.
Your microphone, sir. You may need to push it where it's bright red. There you go.
Here we go.
You got it.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Thought these were all already active. We had a meeting, I believe it was last week or the week before, where we discussed the expenditures that were of primary responsibility for that subcommittee, primarily some of the training and some of the marketing. And I think we were debating to keep those dollars, but how to deploy those dollars. And, you know, as things evolve, our messaging has to evolve. And so there was a clear focus on identification and who to call if you suspected any type of trafficking, to now a more evolved messaging as to, you know, what services are available, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a pretty long conversation about employing the dollars and what training should look like if we're going to use those dollars, and how those dollars would be used efficiently. So I think we're in agreement. We still wanted to do training and we still wanted to do marketing, but with some tweaks.
Excellent.
I think that was it.
That was it. I actually peeped in at the last end of that meeting, and you know, the committee was made aware earlier in the year that our contract with our training element, IHT, that provide us with the online training that we utilized as part of our Hillsborough Heroes program had expired. Right. So there is, given that there are many more players in that we're going to, I believe staff made a recommendation that we go out to RFP to find the best solution to be able to get us not only the best opportunity for training, but also the best opportunity for monitoring the data and the effectiveness of that training to be able to identify if it's making a difference. The second part of that was also as it related to the marketing. As Mr. Corrado mentioned, there was the issue associated with, previously we had the Don't Buy It campaign, which is still a fabulous campaign, has legs, has longevity, and has a great message. But we also want to make sure that we're getting that message out and embracing our corporate partners, business owners, and making sure that they are helping us get the awareness out there and what to do. And so there would be a little bit of a tweak from what we previously did before. But again, we would need to go out to bid or find the best way to find that solution. And I'm not suggesting that we wouldn't find ourselves well served by our previous marketing agency, but doing the due diligence, we would need to approach that. So we'll tackle that when we get there. I did sit in on a lot of the legislative and judicial affairs meeting, but would you like to cover that, Chief Judge?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We met last week. I believe it was August the 11th in the afternoon, and Chair Klug did a great job, as he always does, in running the meeting. And really, Mr. Brancato from the Public Defender's Office provided us some background, some numbers, at least from the Public Defender's Office side, of the number of cases they had. Really, there was only one person that had been prosecuted as a trafficker, I think, correct?
As far as
Turn your mic on, sir,
Mike, I'm
please.
sorry. That had been sentenced.
correct, and that was a result after a jury trial.
Right. And then we had a discussion regarding that, and it was a very productive meeting.
Thank you. And that is something that did also evolve the conversation on, when and if are we going to be positioned to really evaluate whether a human trafficking court has the ability to operate with the best outcome, whether that be budgetarily or identifying those individuals that not only have committed a crime and having some success in the prosecution side, but more importantly, to make sure our victims are not considered criminals and have the opportunity to be referred to services to allow them to move on in their life. And so there's some work that we still yet need to be done. I think our court liaison is doing an excellent job of getting there, but again, that's not been very long.
No, it's Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think she's really got into it probably in January or February of this year, and they've been focused on the dependency cases, trying to look for those most vulnerable of our population to try to help them. And I believe she's identified at least 6 cases, verified human trafficking, was able to notify the case managers so the judges will be able to be notified of it and can make a decision either whether to keep the case themselves or transfer it to Judge Bowman and his options court. So I think it's still just a matter of getting that reliable data. As we discussed on the subcommittee meeting, there's so much information on the internet, but being able to verify and actually get a count of how many cases that we are really dealing with here in Hillsborough County. And I really want to focus, Judge Bowman's got the options court. We're working on finalizing an administrative order finally for him, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And let's get that court up and running where we can focus on that most vulnerable population, and then we can move forward. So.
That's a really good news. I know that was a stumbling block for moving forward for those that are juveniles.
Right.
And so it lays a good roadmap on how to move forward, but also a good identifier on the case management that's required and how we pursue that. For adults, it's not too dissimilar, I guess is the word. However, I don't know that we have the same lens that we've been able to benefit, excuse me, with Judge Bowman's eye. He's been able to get that sense that he's able to look at a case and go, you know what, we need to ask another question. Did we miss it somewhere in the process, whether it be while they were in jail, if they're an adult, whether they were, when they got processed through the court, whether they went through rehab, any of the above that would actually indicate that there is a situation where trafficking occurs, but it's not being identified as such. So I think the liaison has been giving a lot of good cues to be able to find that when it comes to our children. But I think if we are develop this training program and we get our judges trained, then we'll have additional opportunities to see where the liaison could do the best job of identifying those cases and tracking that data.
Yes, ma'am. I think it comes down to education, and of course, we're fortunate to have Judge Bowman available to train and to be able to identify, not just with the judges, but with all of our stakeholders, when to ask that extra question, when to look a little bit deeper, and if it's there, it's there. If it's not there, it's not there. So I think it comes down a lot of it to that education, and hopefully being able to address this issue before it becomes part of the court system. And
Agreed.
keep them out of the court system. So.
Yeah, if it's possible that an effective diversionary program makes sense, we'll have the opportunity to try and get there. But right now, where we are, we don't.
Right.
And I think that's part of the reason why many of our members and our community are clamoring for a court, and I understand why. But there are some pieces that we need to get into place in order for it to be best budgeted for and best managed for the best outcome. So progress is slow, but I think we're getting there.
Well, we have a history of doing it the right way in Hillsborough County with our courts, with our drug court, our veterans court, our mental health courts, and it takes time. There are a lot of stakeholders out there, and we want to make sure everybody has a voice and make sure we're doing it the right way, because we don't want it to fail, we want it to succeed.
Yeah, I happen to believe that there's a great deal of probably overlap on our mental health courts, if you really look at the trauma that's typically experienced and the behavior that comes along with that.
And that may be why down the line, we may merge into just a overall problem-solving court that can touch into different areas and not just be in their one silo.
Their silo,
Because
right.
as you say, that they cross over.
Right, exactly. Thank you very much for that report.
Yes,
I
Madam Chair,
appreciate
thank
it.
you, and thank you.
And the next committee or work group is the services and resources concerns, anticipated activity. Julian Penhale is is she available?
No, she is not. And again, not putting someone on the spot, but Ms. Kemke was part of that meeting. And if you would like to go ahead and give a report, I could speak if you're not ready, but by all means.
I'm fine with that, and of course, add anything that I've forgotten. We talked too about the Don't Buy It campaign and the timelessness of that campaign and how we can continue to use it. We weren't sure where the materials were being kept, so we would like some information about that because there's some folks that would like to continue using that campaign. We also talked about the step-down unit that is going to be starting with HCSO, and that will be for folks that are being released from jail and to connect them to mental health, behavioral health, and housing, and how this would be really important for us to be part of and know about, because we know that sometimes people are identified by traffickers as they come out of jail. We talked about the Bright Project, which you've mentioned, and 211 at your fingertips was where we kind of all started with the crisis center, making sure that we had vetted resources for human trafficking that people could get to in an easy way. Unfortunately, our vetting is very good, but there is a concern in the community that services are not always vetted appropriately and sometimes are used to recruit. And so we have partnered with Bright and have worked very closely with Project Bright, and we will be one of the centers in our area to roll that out. A very strict vetting project for everyone that will be part of that, all the services. And what that will do is it will not only collect data of what is out, who is out there and what they're looking for as far as human trafficking, but also be able to, in real time, to help people as they come forward. So for example, somebody might call 211 at your fingertips, or 211 rather, talk to an intervention specialist, and they will be able to connect them in real time, plus collect that data of who they are, what they're needing. Are they somebody that has a friend that is being trafficked, or are they being trafficked? And then connect them in real time to services. So that's about the extent of what I know about Bright, but it's going to really revolutionize what we do to be able to have that happen. We also talked about the way it will collect that data, which is really important, along with what Judge Bowman is doing to be very realistic in what's happening here. So Project Bright at our next services meeting, resources and services meeting, will be presenting. And then after that, probably after the first year, when HCSO has kind of gotten more of the step-down unit formalized, they'll be coming in as well. So we'll have some more information about that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think it was very, very helpful. Having the data track and the referral network built out is such a wonderful thing. And I know we're not there yet, but I'll give you an example of what I've been tracking for quite some time that we found has that correlative effect that you wouldn't think of right off the bat. So over a year and a half ago, we started tracking evictions. Where are evictions occurring, how many have been filed, who the family was, and correlating that with children in the household. Because what we realize is that when a family gets an eviction notice, or is at risk of being evicted, or is trying to get rental assistance frequently in order to avoid an eviction, that family is going through a serious trauma. And as a consequence of that, they are severely at risk of losing their children, which further creates more trauma. So we were proactively looking at those circumstances to have our family task force, the assessment center, the family assessment center, that works on a preventative method to work with families in order to have children not removed from a household, immediately step into those circumstances to be able to address the trauma that was being experienced and what case resources should come to the table. What we're building here on this side is somewhat similar in the sense that if we're able to figure out all of the safety net pieces and actually be more preventative, we may be able to make a serious impact on the supply side of the damage. And then it would allow law enforcement to be more effective on the demand side. Because as we heard from Mr. Braccato, we really only had one case, but that's because these are really complicated cases, just as domestic violence is very difficult to prove. So I'm pleased to see that we're working in the right direction, and that leads us on to the budget discussion, which is why we were needing to have this meeting today, because an understanding of the service efforts leads into where we spend and what we recommend to the whole board at our next meeting, and then ultimately as a recommendation to staff and to the BOCC in September. It gives us at least clear guidance on what our goals are for 2023. And with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Brickey if he would like to talk to us about the budgetary process and then what you have discussed with us and with the chair and the committees on budgeting.
If I may, Madam Chair and Mr. Brickey, before you begin, if you would like any of the documents that were provided, HTV is ready to bring those documents up as requested.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Brickey?
Great. Thank you, Chair Overman and committee members for inviting me today. So when we looked at building the fiscal year 2023 budget, particularly as it relates to the Human Trafficking Initiative and what budget the county administrator brought to the Board of County Commissioners on July 20th, We looked at what was already budgeted in fiscal year '22, which included the $350,000 for the Human Trafficking Initiative. And from that, the care coordinator was funded, the FQK, the marketing initiative with Visit Tampa Bay was funded, and other costs. We continued that $350,000 in the recommended fiscal year 2023 budget. A second item was the court administration, court liaison position that was budgeted at $100,000 in FY22. That also is continued in the recommended FY23 budget. After the budget was, the recommended budget was presented to the board on July 20th, we did have our budget reconciliation meeting on July 28th. That's where the board looks at flagged items for adding items to the budget. And at that time, the chair did flag $100,000 for the nurse ambassador position, an additional $10,000 for the care coordinator, and $150,000 for the USF TIPLAD Bright Scope project. And that is laid out in the worksheet, the planning worksheet that was provided in your packet. What the next steps are is there will be a first public hearing for the budget. That is where, that's on September 15th, where the board will adopt a tentative budget. And then a week later on September 22nd, the board will adopt the final budget for FY23, fiscal year 2023. And so again, that'll include the continuation of the $350,000 for the Human Trafficking Initiative, which includes the care coordinator and the marketing, the court liaison position, and the addition of the nurse ambassador, the $10,000 addition for the care coordinator, and the TIPLAB Bright Scope project at $150,000. And again, I thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just think it's helpful for our board to recognize that what we've been able to do is maintain our overall budget and then add a few items that were specific to things that we've discovered over the last year. But as far as the marketing and training, we still have those resources available. So Mr. Brickey, I may need Scott Stromer or procurement to help us with that process, but you may be able to advise us on the best way to go about approaching for those committees to make recommendations on how to be best prepared for going out to RFP or for quote or for pricing in order to obtain the services that each of those committees would like to see.
Generally, I would say that the best way forward is to work with staff, Lisa and such, in what sort of service are you looking for? What sort of outcomes? What sort of measures? And that is usually presented to the procurement department, and from there, the procurement department can recommend, whether or not there needs to go out for bids or whether it's a sole source, that sort of thing. I don't want to speak too far for Mr. Stromer and his department, but just providing them with the outline of what you're looking to do and what you're looking to achieve in that effort.
Okay, all right, exactly. Is Mr. Stromer available?
Mr. Stromer is not available. He did attend the Education and Outreach Subcommittee meeting, and I don't know if Mr. Corrado wants to speak on that, or I can relay the information that Mr. Stromer provided.
Mr. Corrado?
He was at our meeting, and he recommended an RFP process, especially for training. I think it was more specific to training, but that we could also enter into an RFP process for the marketing piece of the dollars that remain available looking at the worksheet here, it looks like we have $257,000 to share between those two focuses, the marketing and the training. So again, those committees would have to tweak whatever it is we wanted to tweak on both the marketing side and the training side, and then get with procurement on whether the RFP methodology is the best way to go to put it out, knowing that that takes some time, right? When we go through an RFP process, that's a process in and of itself, has to be approved, I believe, by the BOCC to enter into contract. So knowing that it will take some time to do, I think we probably need to decide that we're going to do that or not do that, and then move forward.
Excellent, thank you very much. Ms. Mondino.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to add that the RFP process was suggested by Mr. Stromer for both marketing and training, because he felt that the marketing, when, he had worked on that in the beginning when it was first let, that the scope would have changed considerably, because the first marketing campaign was really tailored towards Super Bowl, and there was a ongoing component to that for general education, but it's changed, as Mr. Carrata had mentioned in his first report from Education and Outreach Committee, that the focus does need tweaked, does need changed, and that an RFP would be the best way to go about that. He did look for examples of scopes of work for that, but had trouble coming up with something, because it is quite unique in Florida for that type of campaign. And but he's more than willing to work with the committee, each of the committees if necessary, on developing that scope of work.
Excellent, thank you very much for that report.
You're welcome.
So my question to Mr. Brickey, we've set aside, we haven't spent, let's say, in 2023 as of yet, or at least decided how much we were going to spend of the total budget set aside, the $350 that was set aside for the Commission on Human Trafficking as it stands right now. But we have a plan for it. And we'll go out to RFP for both of those items. And they come back at a different amount than what we have set aside as a budget. What does that look like for the commission in the process of making either suggestions or recommendation to the BOCC for approval? How does that work?
Are you referring to if the amounts would be higher and would exceed the $350,000 available?
Yes, because and the reason I say that is, as we see from the handout, we had a scope of approximately $150,000 for FKQ. That was running alongside of the fact that we had a very large budget, if I'm not mistaken, come from the NFL for the additional campaign. It was a different campaign, but it ran alongside of it. And the scope has changed a teeny bit. We want not only to keep an awareness campaign out there, but we'd also like to have some type of outreach to partners to help support employee education when it comes to human trafficking in the workplace. And so it may end up being more or less than $150,000, and as well as with the training. The training might be less since there's more competition out there. That's, and there's lots happened, since we were one of the first training programs in the state, other than the hotel and restaurant business, and I think that was it, honestly. Maybe there might have been one or two others, but there were very few at the time than when we first started developing the specs for the IHT program. So, since other than Code Blue, I mean that's a national program. I mean, obviously, but at a state level and a local level, there weren't very many folks out there doing what we were doing. Pasco came up with a great program, but it was not an hour long. It was like a 7-module series that took a lot longer. And it was literally much more directed towards law enforcement in some respects. So this was a general population education awareness program so that it would allow any employer to encourage their employees to actually participate in fighting the fight with us. So there may be a different focus. But if it came back with those two RFPs came back with significantly different numbers, up and or down, how does that work?
Well, certainly if it were down, then there would be funds for the commission to use in other ways for operating purposes. If as a whole it came higher than the $350,000, then typically what we would need to do is have a budget amendment, go back to the board to approve a budget amendment and increase the appropriation for the commission. That likely would be looking at other funds that might be realigned or using certain reserve funds.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I just want to make sure the commission is aware of the process so that if we were to get to that place, we would know what the process would be to move forward. So thank you very much for your help and your report. I appreciate that. Ms. Kemke, did you have your hand raised for a question?
Yes, I did. Not a question, maybe more of a comment. One of the things that I think the commission has really done is torn down these silos between services, and that's really been helpful as a service provider. But what I want to, when we're talking about training, one of the things the Services and Resources Committee has talked about is having, and also the Project Bright and the TIP Lab, is having a statewide certification for service providers and some monitoring of service providers to make sure that everybody is doing things appropriately and in kind of the best practices. And so I just want to caution, and maybe not caution is a strong word, I just want to remind everybody of that, because as we're talking about training, it would be really wonderful if all of these training items that we have complement each other, whether it's for law enforcement, for the public, or for providers, service providers, that they be a continuation so that we're all saying the same thing.
Or even our judges.
Yeah, we're judges.
Those are wise words, Ms. Kemke. I appreciate that because I do sense that, we do tend to silo at times, but there's also great opportunity. And I have always been very concerned about our ability to measure capacity, because it's great to talk about great programs that we've all designed, but when there's no room at the inn, literally, for being able to address that referral, as I'm sure the Crisis Center has run across on occasion, as well as our law enforcement has run across, we do need to have a measure of capacity and performance. So that's part of the whole idea of the Bright Scope, to get as a starting point. But I think we can look for opportunities to really be able to harness that data, and look forward to that. With that, yes.
Chair Overman, I would like to just mention that another board member had joined us by virtual means, and that is Ms. Corey Dunaway.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With that, the thing is that we don't have a quorum. We can't really vote to approve the proposed budget for submittal to the Board of County Commission for the budget reconciliation, or the next steps of the budgetary process, as Mr. Brickett led. But are there any other comments or concerns regarding it so that it could potentially be fully approved at the next board meeting and considered by the Board of County Commission for funding? Hearing none. Do I have a recommendation of anyone? Since I can't do a motion in a second, is there a recommendation at this point?
I'll recommend.
Okay, good.
I'll second the recommendation.
Okay, we've got lots of hands raised here. So I think by consensus, this meeting will send this on to the board for full approval. I'm hoping at the next meeting we will have a quorum. We need 11 members to actually physically attend under state law. So It'll be really important that everyone be here, and I too appreciate those that were able to attend today. Is there any other items under open discussion that we need to address today? Is there anyone online? I can't see hand raised, so if someone's got a hand raised.
I do not see one, Madam Chair, but I would like to mention, since you brought up the next meeting, it will be on September 29th, 2022 at 1 p.m. here in this AMB boardroom on the 26th floor of County Center.
Excellent, thank you very much. It's a good reminder. Mark it on your calendar, and that way we'll all get here. I won't be traveling that week. Got some things coming up, so I should be here as well. And with that, I thank everyone for their time, for your time, and truly appreciate it, and all the hard work that's done. And I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.